We got Star Wars, we got Need for Speed, and we got plenty of sports. But surprises? Well, those were few and far between. How's it going, everybody? This is Colin Tanner from VideoGamesAreDumb.com, kicking off our E3 2017 coverage with the EA Play event. That's right, for the second year in a row, EA has forgone the traditional E3 route and held its own separate event in Los Angeles, California. And we're going to be breaking down all of the announcements, all of the trailers, and of course, all of the flubs from the EA Play press conference, minute by minute, giving you every single detail, for better or worse. Now let me tell you, if you walked into this event expecting anything more than what was already announced, you walked away pretty disappointing. They covered Need for Speed, they covered Star Wars, they covered Madden, they covered FIFA, and really, truly, there was only one special surprise in the entire hour and 15-minute event. But we're going to get into it right now. The show kicked off with a bunch, and I do mean a bunch of drummers walking out onto the stage. They were all wearing Patriot jerseys, football player jerseys, and on their drums on the side it said Madden 18. They stood around and they played their drums for 30 seconds before a trailer started up for a story mode in the upcoming Madden 18. There was a man on a podium in this trailer. He was being asked, why did he disappear? He was drafted to a team, but apparently he ran away. And a coach is drilling him, going, why are you here? Then he recalls memories with his father, very emotional moments of his dad teaching him football, before cutting to him arguing with apparently, presumably, his best friend saying, you're not the only one that's trying to get drafted here. It's called Long Shot, and it's the story mode for Madden 18. Kind of interesting, I suppose. EA has been sort of pushing in this direction of adding a narrative to their sports titles. They started originally with, I want to say it was FIFA 16, was it FIFA 16 or was it FIFA 17, where they started actually having a career mode that centered around a central character. Of course, this is not exclusive to EA. Over at 2K, they've been doing the exact same thing with their NBA 2K franchise. Maybe it's just me, these never generally work. I don't know, they try to be really impactful and emotional, but as soon as you start actually playing the basketball or the football or whatever it's going to be, it kind of takes away from the narrative, because I don't know. I feel like if you're going to have a central character, we need to hear their inner thoughts during the gameplay. You know what I mean? If you've ever played Uncharted or Tomb Raider, or really any game that has a big story, you get to, little peeks inside of the protagonist's mind while you're playing this game. But when you're playing something like Madden 18 or NBA, as soon as the gameplay starts, it's just a game. We lose the character in the mix. He just becomes an avatar with which we play with. And that's a bit disappointing. But I guess, wait and see. We'll have to see how it turns out. Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, took to the stage, and he called Madden 18 the most innovative Madden in over a decade. He comments about how EA launched EA Play a year ago to change the way they interact with the players. He would bring that up over and over again about how they're interacting with the players. Here's actually what he said. Quote, we built it this way for a very simple reason. We want more of you to share this moment. You won't hear it just from us. You'll hear it from the players. They'll challenge us, tell us what they like and what they don't. He then called out that they will have 8 new reveals today. I guess it was 8. That's what he said. There was going to be 8 reveals. I guess there kind of was. You'll understand in just a moment. And he especially likes to name drop the fact that they're going to have Star Wars, which of course they held off towards the very end of the press conference. He says that they got a bunch of positive comments about Star Wars Battlefront, but also mentions they had constructive criticisms. Really name-checking that people had complaints with EA's Star Wars Battlefront. They didn't like the fact that there wasn't a single player. Some of the gunplay was kind of wonky. The way they handled DLC wasn't right. It was a fairly honest approach from a CEO, which was kind of cool. But he goes on to say that video games are the best form of entertainment, because of course he's going to say that. He runs a video game company, and that they allow us to do extraordinary things and be our most creative selves. He then does a hard pivot to Battlefield 1, where he says a revolution is coming to this franchise. Andrew Golat, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the producer of Battlefield 1. He addresses the audience. He mentions over 20 million people have played Battlefield 1, which I think is a debatable number, because you could register multiple accounts. You know what I mean? I could register 5 accounts Am I part of the 20 million? Oh, whatever. They then cut to a series of fan-made videos, let's plays, and other, clips that were made by influencers, complete with their names and Twitter handles. And this is when they talk about how, the players really shaped the game and how people are connecting through Battlefield 1, how they've made friends through Battlefield 1. And Andrew Gamont says that this month, June, they're launching brand new maps that they're calling the night maps, which I guess I never really considered, but I guess all the maps in the multiplayer take place during the daytime. These are going to take place during night. And that next, they'll have a DLC in September called In the Name of the Tsar, which I believe was already announced, if I'm not mistaken. But they will have 6 new maps in that DLC. The Russian army will be included. They'll have new vehicles, and as well as female soldiers, as well as adjustments to the progressive system to give you more assignments to, level up your characters. They then cut to a trailer for The Name of the Tsar. It has snowy mountaintops and dying fields. Log cabins are exploding, and a war train moves in across the landscape. There are horses with soldiers on top of them, equipped with javelins. And that's probably the thing that got me the most interested, was just seeing that small clip of someone with a javelin. They didn't show anybody throwing it, but that seems pretty brutal. That seems pretty hardcore. And of course, it's such a cool concept that it will probably be impossible to do unless you spend 20 hours practicing. That's how these things are usually for Battlefield. But Patrick Soderlund is back on stage. Oh no, this is the first time he's on stage. Of course, he is the EVP of EA Worldwide Studios. Basically, he's handling all of the games for EA. So Patrick Soderlund goes on stage and says there's going to be one more thing they'll bring to Battlefield. Here's the exact quote that he says. "You want a smaller, tighter experience for greater team play." He then said they're going to share more at Gamescom. If I'm not mistaken, Gamescom is in August. I believe it's August. I remember that because I think that's where they announced the price drop for the PlayStation Vita years and years ago. He didn't really explain what he meant. A smaller, tighter experience. Does this mean we'll have some new DLC coming to Battlefield 1? Is this going to be the place where they announce the follow-up to Battlefield 1? Will we have a brand new version of maybe whatever that free-to-play Battlefield was that was really colorful and cartoonish? Is EA going to repackage Battlefield into a Call of Duty-like package? That's a possibility, because when I think of Battlefield, I do not think of a smaller, tighter experience. I think the opposite. I think of wide open landscapes where you're flying around in planes, running across in tanks, shooting each other from far, far, far distances, and working together in squads. But the idea of having a smaller, tighter experience, that forgive me, but I think that's almost the opposite of what the Battlefield franchise has been. For a long, long time, they've tried to find that series that they can sort of slot in to compete with Call of Duty, the on-again, off-again year. One year it's going to be Battlefront, that's actually what this looks like. One year it's going to be Battlefront, one year it's going to be Battlefield. They're looking for that smaller experience, which is funny because they have Titanfall 2, which I think competes beautifully with Call of Duty, but sadly just didn't sell all that well. So I guess we'll have to wait for Gamescom. If I had to guess, they're going to be trying to make something that's a little bit more like, Infinity Ward's shooter, which would be interesting, but once again, certainly wouldn't be Battlefield, or maybe it's just DLC. We don't know. Anyway, they do a hard pivot to FIFA, and let me tell you, FIFA took up a good portion of this press conference. They say they're going to have the largest FIFA competition ever, where players can represent their favorite real-world teams. Okay? We need to take a moment here. So, this is Patrick Soderlund on stage, and he's like, you're going to be able to represent real-world teams. And there's these images behind them because, they got like a video screen behind them and they're cutting to different footage of different players. And there's one especially goofy looking guy on the screen. So the audience laughs and you just see it in Patrick Soderlund's eyes. Like this amount of fear just begins piercing through his eyes towards the audience. You can tell that he's suddenly intimidated. He looks right at them because he doesn't know what they're laughing at. He doesn't know that there's that picture behind him. So he looks at them, doubles down, and says, it's true, you can. And it was so sad because he had no idea what was going on. He thought they were laughing at him. Whatever. They then show off some footage of professional FIFA and Madden players, which is fine or whatever. And then they cut to a trailer for FIFA 18. They show off the brand new mocap. They show they have better animations. They show what appears to be a television show called Men in Blazers. I guess they're famous. Michael Davis and Roger Bennett, these are the Men in Blazers. I guess it's some sort of, I don't know, soccer show. They take to the stage. But before we get to that, when they showed off this FIFA 18 footage, they had the PlayStation logo ahead of it. And that's something we're going to be talking about over and over and over and over again. EA is trying to balance their exclusive games. Well, not exclusives, but they're balancing their properties between Microsoft and Sony. Of course, EA has EA Access on PC and Xbox One. They don't have that on PlayStation 4 because Sony turned down the opportunity to have EA Origin on there. That's, of course, the almost like the Vault system where you can download all these games for a monthly subscription. So it was really interesting watching which trailers had a Microsoft logo and which trailers had a PlayStation logo. And far and away, most of them had the PlayStation 4 logo beforehand. Anyway, we're back on stage with the Men in Blazers, and they're just doing a bit of comedy, talking about FIFA and how realistic it is, and that Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't follow soccer or football, Cristiano Ronaldo, apparently he's a very popular player. They used him for mocap, so they have that really realistic looking animation for each of the players. I'd be a little bit concerned though, because every player has their own movements, so maybe they're all going to look and act like him, which would be kind of weird. They also name-checked, this was a really sweet moment, they name-checked Peter Moore, the former head of EA's esports division, who is now becoming the CEO of Liverpool, the football club. It was a really touching moment, because, he was at EA for, oh boy, a decade, more than a decade, and now he's actually the CEO of a football club, which is kind of cool. They then cut to a trailer to talk about Alex Hunter, who of course is the fictional character from FIFA 17. They're going to be continuing that story mode. They're going to be continuing his story into this next game, sort of like a Mass Effect. Your decisions are going to influence it, presumably, because they show tons of footage of people sort of yelling at him and then jump cutting back to him in the locker room, sitting by himself, reflecting on his life and his choices, which was kind of cool, Now here's where everything gets really awkward. They cut to Jesse Jesse Wellens, I guess is his name. I've never heard of him, but he describes himself as a YouTube creator. And, making stuff on YouTube, it's very different than speaking in public. And this was a prime example because he awkwardly stumbled through this entire speech saying they were there to talk about Need for Speed Payback. He stumbles over his words frequently. He starts over at one point. I feel so bad for this guy. I'm not trying to make fun of him, but they actually had to stop and start over at one point, and he had to go, I'm Jesse Wellness, or whatever the hell his name is. And then just out of nowhere, the audience just starts going, oh, like the audience feels bad for him. So Marcus Nielsen, he's the producer of Need for Speed Payback. He just runs up there and he's like, hey, what's going on, man? They do this awkward handshake. And the entire time Jesse has this deer in the headlights look on his face. It was so awkward. And they're like, well, let's cut to the trailer for Need for Speed Payback, which they do. They announced that there's going to be 3 playable characters in the story mode. It will be open world with tons of customization centered around performance. There's going to be collectibles called relics. They're going to be abandoned classic cars that you find and you can soup up, which is kind of a cool concept that they've had in Forza Horizon for a few years. So they give you a reason to explore the open world and, some pretty interesting collectibles. They name-checked the VW Bug, so that's one of the vehicles that you're going to be able to collect in there. They then cut to a trailer, which is going to be showing off their brand new set piece moments. We heard a little bit about this, how they're going to be doing something sort of like a lot of third-person action games, like Dead Space, or Uncharted, or Tomb Raider. They're going to have these set piece moments, except it's going to be a Need for Speed game, so you're going to be driving in set-piece moments. And I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago because I was really curious to see how this was going to work exactly. Well, they show us the highway heist, which is one of those set pieces, and it was interesting. Basically, the team, these 3 characters, they're going to go steal a car from the back of a truck. So they're driving across these desert roads, and which looked good, not all that different from the previous Need for Speeds that Ghost Games worked on. But there are these cars called enforcers that are protecting the truck, and so you actually have to fight those. And the way you do it is you handle it much like you would in Need for Speed or Burnout. You just knock them off into the side of the road, and then it cuts to slow motion as the car is flipping over. So that's basically what it is. These enemy cars didn't look too aggressive. They didn't seem to have any tactics outside of nudging the cars. So it basically just looked like more Need for Speed, but with voiceover like, we gotta get to that truck. Exciting. I know. They close in on the truck, but as soon as they get close, the back of it opens up, and there's some sort of fireballs shooting out. There's tons of burning cars all over the highway, and so the player is dodging the cars. There's these slow motion effects as they swerve around a corner. They swing through road signs. They're avoiding telephone poles. They're knocking cars into telephone poles. All of it looking very nice. Tons of particle effects. The cars are slowly morphing and transforming as they smash into things, which was just a nice look at the graphics. Finally, they line up to the truck. And it's like, all right, you need to jump on top of the truck. And this woman's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And here's where I was like, okay, how are they going to handle this? Is the woman actually going to climb out of the truck? The answer is no. Instead, it cuts to a cutscene of her jumping on top of the truck. So you're not actually going to be interacting with these events in any meaningful way. Anytime you're doing something other than racing, it's going to cut to a cutscene. That's what it looks like to me. So she jumps on top of it, the truck starts swerving around, and then the car bursts out of the back of the trailer from the truck and right into a group of police officers, or not into a group of police officers, but right into a group of police squad cars with a helicopter, and then it cuts to a splash screen, Need for Speed, Payback. And the footage, like I said, just all in all, it just looked like more Need for Speed, which is not a bad thing. But that story mode didn't really add anything to it because you were basically racing to get to a truck. So what's the difference between racing to get to a truck and racing to get to a finish line? I don't really know. On top of that, the idea that no, you're not really going to be interacting with any of these events. It's just going to be cutscenes. I don't get it. I don't get what the point of any of this is. I don't understand why they're going so far to make this giant story mode within this open world. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, okay? I'm not saying that I'm going to be like, oh, I'm not going to play that. Of course I will. It's another Need for Speed by Ghost Games. They make really good racing games. But I'm just not sold on this concept really adding anything. It just seems like, well, voice acting and cutscenes, but not really interaction. And that's a bit disappointing because, and of course we haven't seen everything in the game. There could be lots of other stuff we haven't seen. And maybe I don't even like the idea of running around on foot or anything like that. But, if this is what they're bringing to the EA Play event, I assume this is a pretty good representation of the final product. Whatever. Anyway, we're back on stage with Patrick Soderlin, and he talks about the EA indie wing known as EA Origins. You might remember that they put out that game Unraveled, or was it Unwrapped or Unraveled? The one with Yarny, the little cat. They put it out last year. EA Origins is still going strong. They are funding independent projects, and then they're giving that money back to the developers. He announces that there are several new titles in development, but today they're only going to show one. And this is where he brings up Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which of course was a very popular independent game from 2013. A very good one, I might add. I played that game. I'm sure you have too if you're listening to this. And he name checks the creator, Joseph Fares, and his brand new studio, Haze Light, with their new game, A Way Out. So this is going to be an independent project that EA is funding, and they're going to be publishing through the EA Origins lineup. And yes, this is the same creator behind A Tale of Two Sons. And so in the trailer, they show a prison. There's these two men that don't really get along, but they decide they're going to work together to escape the prison. It's going to be a co-op adventure that's going to require co-op. As in, if you decide to pick up this game and play it by yourself, you cannot. You have to have someone else to play with. And Joseph Fares would go on to say that, hey, this is a co-op only game. We encourage split screen. And they have like a vertical split screen. So, someone's on the left and someone's on the right. That's the primary way to play. He says there's going to be online, but to really, really enjoy this game, you're going to want to be on couch co-op. And what's cool about this is these two characters that are trying to break out of this prison, they're going to be going through entirely different events at different times. At one point, the person on the left might be in a cutscene, while the person on the right is interacting with, gameplay. They're actually playing the game while someone else is having a cutscene. Maybe they need to distract some guards. So one guy was going to distract the guard while someone else is jumping through a laundry chute to collect something that's going to help them escape. Or you can actually switch the those roles and have entirely different outcomes. So you have to kind of figure out who is best suited for this. And they also show some gameplay where the characters are kind of merged together. They're back to back, with their arms kind of connected, and their feet are against two separate walls so that they can climb up to escape the prison. And they will escape. They do get out of the prison sooner or later because they show them robbing a gas station, driving around in a car, actually holding machine guns, stopping by a hospital to visit a newborn because one of the characters just went to prison and his wife was pregnant. And his wife is there like, why are you here? It looked really interesting. This was the one huge surprise at the EA Play event. And just the prospect of a co-op only game is really fascinating because that means that they're designing this game just like that, just for co-op. There will be no single player, because that's the problem is a lot of these co-op games, it's like, well, you just have a blue version of the same character, or something like that, and it's nothing all that important. But here you're going to be within the same environment doing entirely different things, having different stories that affect different characters, and that's deeply exciting. EA has tried to get a meaningful co-op game out for at least over a decade. I remember when they announced the original Army of Two. That was a huge motivator for them. They're talking about co-op. We're going to be introducing this whole new way to play, and we all know how that turned out. I'm sorry, but if you liked Army of Two, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. Anyway, so the creator of the game, Joseph Fares, is on stage, and you could tell this guy is really passionate about his game. Here's actually what he said, quote, "I know I sound very cocky, but it's true. I live, breathe this game. It's going to kick ass. I'm going to show you a gameplay video." The guy who introduced Yarny was a very shy individual. If you remember, Unraveled was a very simple, relaxed game. This guy was the total opposite. He was on stage like, it's going to kick ass. I fucking love video games. I love my team back at Sweden. I believe he said it was Sweden. This guy was, cranked to 11 the entire time. And the game shows. It's a really interesting game, and apparently it's going to be coming early 2018. I can't wait. Patrick Söderlund goes back on stage. He says that they are here to talk about games that are coming soon, but they also want to highlight games that are far away. And he brings up Seed. SEED, Seed, which apparently stands for Search for Extraordinary Experiences Division. It's a very small division within EA that Patrick Söderlund is in constant contact with. They call these people the futurists of electronic arts. They're a small, stealthy team that look into everything, including neural networks, to create better AI, which is baffling, or profiling millions of players to create a brand new protagonist that people can relate to. He then turns to talk about Project Scorpio. Now, this was not a huge part of the show, but yes, they name-checked Project Scorpio. He shows off Madden 2018 photos from Scorpio. Hard to tell if they look better, but this is where Patrick steps in and says that they can use Scorpio for more than graphics. He says this is the right system for the right time. He then turns to talk about brand new IP, and he says, quote, "The next game will push every boundary for you," end quote. Apparently, this is a small tease for a brand new game from BioWare. It was a really cryptic trailer. They basically showed a big steel wall. They had a voiceover talking about how this wall is important. It's their armor to protect them from what lies beyond. They show a gigantic jungle with a strange-looking, violent beast that just roars into nothing. I don't know why these beasts are always roaring. I don't know what the point of that is. But and then they show a gigantic robot suit that someone enters in, and the game is called Anthem. That was it. But there's going to be a full gameplay reveal at the Scorpio event tomorrow, so we will definitely be talking about that when it happens. Anyway, Sean O'Brien takes the stage to talk about NBA Live. Yes, NBA Live, which of course has been struggling to have any sort of relevance for a very, very, very long time, because of course NBA 2018 is it's a really good game, and NBA Live, well, it isn't. So Sean O'Brien is like, hey, we're going to cut to a live play center outside of this stage area, which they do. They cut to what they say is going to be a live demo, which it isn't, to be honest. They show two people standing around, and they're rewatching their gameplay in slow motion. That's right, they're rewatching their gameplay in slow motion. They're not playing the game, but they're commenting over the slow motion footage saying, oh yeah, I'm using the right stick to control the ball, and oh, you can see right there he missed a timing window, and so I pushed through the center, and here's a slow motion dunk. And then they cut back to Sean on stage. I have no fucking clue why they did this. It added absolutely nothing. They were not playing the game. They were not playing the game. They were just, anyone could do this right now. Go play any sports game, press pause, and then rewatch footage in slow motion. Would you say that is a good representation of the game? I wouldn't. I think that just shows off the graphics. Anyway, Sean says that a free demo for NBA Live will be coming in August, and it will include the one solo and co-op play that will carry over into the full game. You see, the one is their brand new story mode, where you can be the Streets 1 or the Pro 1, which basically means you can play in the Streets or you can play in the NBA, or both. I think one leads into the other. So basically, you will play against NBA legends. You will level up as you play more of the game, which will get you new gear and new abilities that will have you move on to the Pro-Am League before joining the NBA. All in all, it's a cool concept, being able to play in the streets, playing in the streets. But what if you just released another NBA Street? Why are we doing this middle ground still? That's the thing that confused me most, is they're like, yeah, we're returning to street ball, and that's what's so great, and then we're going to be going into the NBA. It's like, no. Slow down. Nobody needs another NBA 2K. NBA 2K is a great NBA 2K. What we need is something different. And the idea they're doubling down on another NBA Live, I just don't understand it. And they're doing this half-measure thing with the NBA Streets thing. I don't know. Well, the demo is going to be out in August. I guess everyone can check it out then. Anyway, Andrew Wilson is back on stage, promising a massive finale with Star Wars. But before that, he discusses the Play to Give event, where they give money to charity, and he says it shows the world that video games can be a positive force. I guess they can. He also announces that EA Access, what we were talking about earlier with the EA Vault, where they keep all the games that you can download, it will be free for the rest of the week on Xbox and PC, and the PlayStation 4 will have free trials. How that relates to the Play to Give event, I have no idea. But yes, finally, they cut to Star Wars Battlefront 2. They cut to a video of someone tweeting about the game, saying they wanted a single-player game, and then it cuts to a bunch of different people tweeting that they want single-player in Star Wars. It fills up the whole screen, and then I'm going to practice this name here, Jania Gavankar, Jania Gavankar, that's her name. She's an actress from Star Wars Battlefront 2 Story Mode, and she's there to show off the very first footage of the game. She says, we don't want to relive the movies, we want an all-new story, and announces that this story will be a connection between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, basically covering what happened in between the movies, somewhat like, the Rogue One movie that came out earlier this year, or last year. There's going to be a deeper progression system for multiplayer with more customization and characters from all eras. That means they're going to be covering the prequels, they're going to cover the classic trilogy, and they're going to be addressing some of the things that we're going to be seeing in the brand new Star Wars film. They said they brought in the best Battlefront players to change and influence the game. In fact, they call these people game changers for a reason. They cut to a video where they show these game changers sitting around, pointing out things that they don't like about the game and, impacting how it's being designed and developed. They talk about a brand new class system, which will have different abilities and as well as different attributes and health. So if you select one class that's maybe really good at sniping and won't have as much health, you can select the tank class and they'll have more health. I don't know. It's pretty straightforward. They said the gunplay has been completely changed to reduce the floaty feel. And I, for one, was like, oh, thank God. Because I played Star Wars Battlefront. I thought it was fun for what it was. It was a very simplistic shooter, a shooter for kids. That's what it is, to be honest. But that game had just a really floaty, imprecise gunplay. Well, they say they have fixed that. They got rid of that, and that the progression system will introduce new weapons, vehicles, abilities, and character customization. Oh boy, they even let the Game Changers make the very first trailer for Star Wars Battlefront 2. And here's something interesting. It started off with, once again, the PlayStation 4 logo, presumably because PlayStation 4 will get certain features before the Xbox One and PC version. Probably, because that's what they did with the original Star Wars Battlefront. Not the original, but Star Wars Battlefront from 2015. Yes, but in this trailer, it features the prequel robots taking on a city of clones. I'm not sure which city this is. Maybe it's Naboo. I don't know. It looked like the one from episode 1, where the princess lived. There's tons of tanks. There's these tauntaun-like creatures that these clones are riding on top of. Darth Maul shows up and kills everyone. It cuts to an X-Wing with dogfights and brief glimpses of the story. It looks like the Emperor is somehow back in a robot suit. I don't know. But Jania returns to the stage and says that they're going to be having a special 20 versus 20 match that's going to be taking place at EA Play. And then they cut to John Boyega from Star Wars The Force Awakens, and he announces that Finn and Phasmar, the characters, will be playable in the game, as they will be the very first DLC for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now here's the thing. If you were rolling your eyes at the announcement of DLC before the game is out, do not worry. This is actually good news. Hear me out. They have announced that there's going to be tons and tons and tons of DLC that will be entering in waves through seasons. Free, there's going to be characters, there's going to be stages, there's going to be weapons, and all of that DLC is going to be free. They're going to have free DLC, and they say they're doing this so that they will not split up the community. And if I had to imagine, this is probably one of those lessons that they learned from Titanfall 2. As you'll recall, Titanfall 2 has tons of DLC. All of it is free, and that has made sure that the player base, while it is retained, while it's been small and retained all of it, what I'm trying to say is it's a small player base, but they retained a lot of players because the DLC is free. When you have paid DLC, you split up your fan base, and that's a real problem. Pre-orders will be available shortly, and you will have access to the beta. And then they cut to a live demo of Star Wars Battlefront taking place in the exact same city. One of the major highlights was when they actually cut to NBA Live video for no fucking reason. And that was it. That was your EA Play 2017 event. All in all, I gotta say, it was pretty disappointing, if I have to be honest. I think that A Way Out, which of course is being made by Haze Light, the people behind Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. Not just graphically, but just the concept of this co-op online or couch co-op to create a narrative. It looks very, very good. Everything else looked like more of the same. And I'm not an EA hater. I know lots of people like to go, oh, fuck EA, worst company in America. I don't believe that. I think anyone that says that has a screw loose. You're insane. Get over it. But I will say that this EA Play event just didn't have a real impactful moment outside of A Way Out. It's like, oh, here's Star Wars. Look at this city. Look at all these different guns. Here's some sniper rifles. Here's the robots. Here's the tauntauns. Here's the X-Wings. They're flying around. All right, great. Cool. I guess we'll see how that turns out. We knew it was going to be there. What do you got for me? Oh, we got this brand new game called Anthem from BioWare. You're going to want to check it out tomorrow. It's like, oh, okay, great. I'd like to see it today, but if it's going to be showing off tomorrow, what was the point of this? Why even bring it up? I mean, I guess you're trying to get more attention for the Microsoft event, but as a viewer, it's like, oh, all right, fine, cool. I'll see you then, I guess. And we got FIFA. We got story mode. All right, but what's the story mode, actually about? Well, we're not going to tell you what the story mode is about. We're just going to cut to lots of footage of people arguing. And that's the exact same thing they did with, Madden 18, and as well as the story mode for NBA, the one. There wasn't really a story to be seen. There wasn't anything to latch onto. You're going to be playing sports. That's it. As for the Battlefield 1 footage, it was like, all right, cool, more DLC. I guess the thing I'm most curious about is what did he mean when he said there's going to be a smaller, tighter Battlefield experience? But other than that, it was a fairly lackluster EA Play event, and that's really disappointing. I mean, consider last year. They had Battlefield 1. They had Mass Effect Andromeda. And say what you will about Andromeda, but we did not know how that game was going to shake out. They had just more... I feel that they should have at least attempted to be a little bit more future-focused. I would have recommended that they show off maybe some of that Star Wars third-person shooter game that we know is going to be coming out in the near future. Amy Hennig, one of the people behind Uncharted, she's working on that. Why not just give us a small glimpse of that? Give us something to look forward to. But they didn't. They're just like, come back tomorrow for the Scorpio event. So I don't know. But yes, I think that's going to have to do it for this EA Play special report. Check back tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a podcast all about the Microsoft event. We're going to have a ton to talk about with Scorpio, and then another podcast for the Bethesda event. Come back on Monday. We're going to be talking all about Ubisoft, then PlayStation, and on Tuesday we'll cover all the events from the Nintendo Direct presentation. My name is Colin Tanner. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.